want to show you something real quick inside the instruction manual. It says, note, use this compressor only with airbrushes. Do not use this compressor with any other type of painting equipment. Well, I'm not using it with painting equipment, so I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a gray area. I think this should be fine. Okay, so I'm going to call this my out-of-the-box review on two products. The first one is going to be the Chinese-made GraverHelper, and the reason I'm calling this the out-of-the-box review is because the modifications are going to come later. This is going to be basically how it's intended to be set up with the original foot pedal and original connections and everything. I did go to the aquatic store and buy some line, some air line, and I got some little adapters and stuff like that because I plan on making these a little bit longer. They're kind of short, the ones they come with. So I'm going to go ahead and hook everything up. And the second one is going to be a oilless airbrush compressor. It says that it goes up to 58 Max Working Psi, and I think all I need for the engraver is about 20 to 30. So I'm hoping this thing works. Okay, so on the engraver, everything is relatively easy to hook up. These lines are already attached to the handpieces. They just plug into handpiece number 1 and handpiece number 2. Foot pedal, same thing, hooks into the throttle. Of course, you have power supply. So real quick before I do anything else, I'm gonna cut this line that I have here about halfway through. Take one of the adapters I got, stick it over top of that. And now this is the line for the handpiece. I'm gonna add it on here. So now I have that small little thing that I cut off here to actually fit inside the engraving machine. Okay, so for now, until I can find the right size hose or another adapter or something, or I don't know, this might actually work. I have this piece of plastic right here, like a cone-shaped tip right here. It gets smaller. This is actually going to fit on this right here fairly nicely. All right, that's nice and tight. And this goes straight to the air compressor. And then this tip actually fits into the back of the engraving machine. And there's these little teeth on the inside of here that when you push this blue button in, they open up. And then as soon as it's released, they close. So they grab onto whatever goes in there. And so that, I'm not going to pull it too hard, but that actually seems like it works. So I don't know, I might keep that. And that's actually a piece of a makeup canister that I found in the bathroom, so hopefully the wife doesn't get too mad at me for that. But she calls this stuff toys anyway, but I like to say that it's tools, not toys. So anyways, I'm going to move on from that situation. But I think for the most part I have everything set up. I know it looks kind of messy, but I've got my foot pedal hooked into the throttle. I have both my hand pieces, and I've got the air compressor hooked into the back of the engraving machine. So I'm going to turn the air compressor on and show you what happens on the regulator. Oh, we got a leak. All right, so we're leaking air. Back here. All right. Alright, so I did a little bit of adjusting off camera, not much, but basically what I did was I pulled this little pin up here and I turned it to the left and I basically opened it up all the way. Actually, I don't think I'm very far off. It doesn't go anymore after a certain point, but what I did was I turned it on at that point and it actually chokes out because it gets so low. It's probably about maybe 2 or 3 pounds of PSI, and go ahead and turn the pressure up slightly to about, that would be maybe 30. Now I found that the gauge on the machine here doesn't go above 2, and no matter how I adjust the knob in the back there, it actually doesn't go any higher, but it seems like that's really all I need. Now you notice with this one, it's going to be a lot less aggressive, the sound. Now the reason why this one's more aggressive is because it comes with a smaller spring. This one here has the large spring in it, and I'm thinking that I could actually take it apart and put a smaller spring in it to make it less, or actually more aggressive. Because there would be less room in it for it to move around, and there would be more tension under it if it was smaller. That right there is very aggressive, and I'm actually very happy with how that's working. So I want to show you something real quick that's happening with the hand pieces. So this right here is up to pressure at about 30 pounds, at about 30 psi. When I turn the engraving machine on, both hand pieces are plugged in. It's set to handpiece number 1. What's happening is the air compressor is trying to stay at an equal pressure with the engraver. The handpiece, set number 1, is leaking air. When I hold it to my ear, I can hear it leaking air. And that's why this won't cut off for more than a second when I have the engraving machine on. Now this right here still has pressure on the gauge. The engraving machine still has pressure on the gauge, but when the machine is off, the lines are closed. When I turn the machine on, the line opens, air leaks out of here, and that's why this right here, the air compressor, won't turn off for more than 1 second, because it's trying to stay at an equal PSI with the engraving machine. can also watch the pressure on the engraving machine just go straight down to 0 because the handpiece is leaking too much air. And again, both pressures are equal right now because the handpiece is closed off, the machine is off, and you can still see that there's a lot of pressure in both machines. This is handpiece number 2. Same thing. Pressure goes down to 0 on the engraving machine. So just to further prove what's going on here, I'm going to unplug both handpieces, switch it back to 1, and I'm going to turn on the engraving machine. That goes down to 0. But watch what happens when I turn the machine off. The pressure goes back up because the lines are closed off, and both machines stop making sound. Well, the air compressor stops working so hard because the air compressor's line, the line that I have on the air compressor up top right there, is not leaking any air at all. And neither is the line that's hooked into the engraving machine in the back. That one's not leaking air at all. And from the sound of it and deductive reasoning, the throttle is not leaking air here or here. So that's how I've diagnosed that the handpieces are the cause of why it's trying so hard to continue running, because they're leaking air. So I can already tell that's going to be my first modification to getting this system to work, is going through and fixing the leaks inside of the handpieces.